Good morning. This is Ronald Allen, Managing Change on Facebook Live. Our discussion this morning is about the benefits of engagement. And as we've spoken before, if you ever go into a nursery, a kindergarten environment, you'll see that the children, the young minds, are fully engaged, even in the very simplest of things. And this is really the crux of today's discussion. When we talk about engagement, we don't have to always consider the newest, the latest, the greatest, the biggest. Good morning, Malcolm. Thank you very much for joining in today's discussion. Benefits of engagement. Look at some of the smallest innovations, the smallest iterations in the development of a product that have made significant changes, have had significant changes. And again, I come back to when we look at young minds being developed, it is their curiosity in the fundamentals, in how we orchestrate the engagement that makes the difference. The process, the methodology is certainly important and enhances that experience. Like a good home, like a steady ship, it's the rudder that steers it. Good morning, Melissa. Thank you very much for checking in with us here at Managing Change Facebook Live Chat. Today's discussion is benefit of engagement. So what I'm going to talk to you today is what I refer to as tactically strategic benefits. All right, that's the process I'm going to take you on. And I'm going to use a number of different examples, and I've had to write this out because it is, I want this to go on a very process-driven manner here. So, why do I always refer to kids in a kindergarten or a nursery? Because they are young minds, unfeathered by what we should do, what we've done in the past, and they're exploring, they're navigating, they're pathfinders for themselves. And I think as we get older, we begin to lose that quality. I believe it was the Italian entrepreneur, educator, Montessori, who came up with this school method that said, follow the minds instead of leading, which is the pedagogy system that we all have grown up with and still certainly hardwired into our educational institutions. Yet the young mind instinctively looks for things. If we put interesting objects and we place audio that can stimulate the mind, you'll see instinctively our brains work in that fashion. And what is very creative, and I think is very beneficial, even at our age, is to consider that in the Montessori school model, they infuse 2, if not 3 languages. And today, that should be pretty much a common practice. Unfortunately, we did not have that. We had Latin, which was never spoken outside. And I think only when we got to graduate school, they were looking at Chinese and certainly even Spanish. Well, today, the marketplace, Spanish, is a second prerequisite. When you're going into communities, when you're talking over the phone to support services, for help, community services, Spanish is right up there with English. Well, there are now other languages which are required and would enhance our experience. So today's discussion is all about the benefits of engagement. And let's kind of start off with this interesting observation. There is nothing so much that is new or even radical. Rather, it is the execution of what we do, right? And we can see that in many of our reports and search and studies. So self-awareness of one's leadership is the first. And I say that, again, reflecting to yourself. You're leading yourself. You don't have to have a team of people. When you get up in the morning, what is it the first thing you do? Do you look at the phone and look for tweets? Or do you engage in some material, some information, some reading, autobiographies, for example, that will enhance your understanding, not just for today, in general, your understanding of the environment you're going to be in. So self-awareness of one's leadership style starts with self, as in servant leadership, right? As in situational leadership, looking at your personality type, looking at those that are around you, and then engaging in a forward-thinking, collaborative manner. And you're going to hear that word again as we go down the road here. We just mentioned situational leadership, understanding what is it. And then the most important thing is, and I know certainly certifications, diplomas, graduate documents, etc., trophies are important. The problem is they represent the past. And we're always moving into the future. We're always dynamically having to look for, seek out information that can be used for our benefit. Benefits of engagement. So our second point here, understanding situational leadership, is the technical, the application of what we've learned, and then the adaptation real time. Adaptation being, I've learned how to do QuickBooks. Okay, wonderful. Given your business, given your need to use it at work, what are the nuances? Just as in language, we talk about jargon, right? If you're in London, right, you're going to talk like this a bit. Depends on what part of London also. Whereas if you're up north in Liverpool, which I cannot do the accent at all, you'll speak more like that. Okay? Same thing in America. There's certain jargon, there's certain words. Good morning, Dave. Thanks for joining in. Today's discussion is all about benefits of engagement. So it's the execution, it's the adaptation to the environment you're in. Whether you're in a good place and having to, in many cases, fend off people that would like to take advantage of you, or you're in a poor, bad place or uncomfortable place, how can you begin to change? You know how I don't really like the word change, because our behavior, our psychology doesn't want to change. Engagement, yes. Involvement, yes. Participate, yes. So again, I'm still searching myself. I am in a place of exploration, and I'll always be in that place of exploration, just as the people have for 30 years have said, always be learning. Because once you stop, you're in a downward spiral of a lot of pain and ultimate suffering. So our second point is understanding situational leadership, both in the technical, how it's done, how it should roll out, the application, how you would use that process, this tool, and then in the adaptation of what you've learned because of the feedback you get from life. Coaching. This is another area that when they do a corporate university studies and they ask management, leadership, those who are in the field, those who are looking to improve their situation, they ask for coaching. Coaching that is very directive. We call that directive coaching. And they're looking to understand how coaching can help an individual at peak times of emotional engagement. Now that's very different than if everything is fine and you want to just improve your situation. An example. There are companies that are not doing well. There are individuals that are failing themselves. Notice what I said there. Failing yourself, not outside. And that's a whole discussion itself. They need a certain type of coaching. They need very tactical, strategic coaching. Tactical, what do I do given these different situations? And what's the menu that's available? Strategic, it's to move me from where I am to a second, third, tertiary, fourth level of improvement and desired outcome. And then the coaching itself, of course, is enhancing, supporting, right? You got to support. And then heightened emotion, right? Those are people who are constantly very gregarious, very extroverted, and they're always on what's going to happen, what's next, and they need that heavy stimulation. Those two types of coaching are very different. And what we've found in reading some of these studies is that people are looking for effective coaches. People, number one, have gone through the experience. And that's why, you know, I kind of question why people who get to a certain age, my age, are weaning themselves out of business. Because you're a gladiator. You know, you've been in the battles. Did you win? Well, you're still standing. You can still share your experience, your perceptions. Is winning the only answer that we're looking for? Or is it maintaining? Is it stabilizing? Is it minimizing risk? Minimizing the confrontation or the negative that could have occurred? You know, in project management, we talk about opportunity risk and negative risk. Well, how can you have an opportunity risk? Okay, think for 2 seconds. When you invest, there is a negative risk and there is a positive risk. And we can go in that another time as well. All right, you press me. All right, I'll do it quickly. Let's say you're going to invest $100. And if you invest $100 and you say, okay, my negative risk is I could lose 5%. Are you comfortable with that? Are you willing to engage with that? Yes, no. There's a decision right there. Conversely, you might say, if I make 10%, 5%, I'm willing to take my money off the table. So both the negative and positive have ranges of comfort or discomfort that we instinctively or through calculation establish as guidelines. And we should do that also, as I've always said, use these tools in your personal life. Why? Because that's what drives satisfaction. That's what drives the meaning, right? And we're setting up these guidelines to help us. Let's move on. So I don't want to give out everything, right? So here's the fourth is organizational charisma and savvy. Organizational charisma and savvy. What on earth does that mean? Are we on one of those Hollywood programs? Absolutely not. When you walk into a family environment, there is an organizational structure, right? And you know where you are in your family. The expression, I can see you naked, it means that we have become accustomed to your behavior. You do things on an hourly basis, a daily basis, a weekly basis, monthly basis, a year, and over time people see you as you act, not just what you say. So that becomes you. So if you understand people, back to situational leadership, personality types, and you confirm that that is the way they think and behave through their actions, then you can be more savvy when you approach them, right? You know how they talk about salespeople, they give a lot of weight to this type of review of people in sales. When you walk into a room, what do you see? I don't purposely do many of my Managing Change Facebook Live chats. Notice I frame it in that sense. It's not a Facebook Live chat. It's Managing Change Facebook Live chats. In my library, there's a purpose for that. I'm driving a message. It's subliminal, and I don't purposely use, for example, my cartoons, right, my comic books, because I want to show people, as much as I have the Harvard reviews, 2 sets, one for my wife, one for me, which was really beautiful when we met, and I realized, hey, this is a lady that likes to read. 2 types of personalities. So when we think of personality types and we think of organizational charisma and savvy, it drives down to the individual employee, and then it becomes a culture of the department or group that you work with, and certainly spreads across the whole enterprise or the company itself. So again, tactical, strategic coaching. So when we talk about organization, we talk about the ability to get work done, right? Not just from yourself in the teams or the people that you directly manage or that you have no management control over authority, and yet you're working with them to get something done. It could be the delivery of services in a hospital. It could be on the docks in fulfillment. It could be with relating with people across the world. All of these require a sensitivity to how the other person is, behaves, and wants to engage. A collaborative proposition, right? A collaborative proposition, because many people don't believe in that. It's amazing in my teaching for project management certifications, and one of the key elements of why now I see I'm going to continue to do it as much as I can is because when we have all this wonderful conversation on social media, an incredible library of resource material of how we can do things right, many people are still coming out of the industrial mindset, do it my way or the highway. That's the reality. So I blend that. That's the touch point, right? I'm not talking just philosophy. It's great for the Harvard classics to read and study, and oh my goodness, this would be wonderful. And then when you come out to the real world, you get a smack in the head of reality. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? Not how a group of people who are, well, we're at the cooler here, and we're talking about how wicked the world is. I submit to you on that one. Run away. Never go back to the cooler when you see another person at the cooler. Organizational charisma. Safe island approach. I do this also in some of my workshops with the educational institutions. And if I get a chance, when I get a chance to do with corporations. Take people to the safe island. Well, what do I mean? When you walk into a room of people and you're going to work with them, you're not going to train them. That's for dogs. You're going to work with them. You're going to engage with them. What if you said, you set up the whole meeting with, I need your perspective from your experiential knowledge. What a difference would that make? Would that build rapport? Would that develop a certain amount of earnestness for your people with you? Would that allow you to go deeper into the organization if you are, such as myself, business consultant, seeking that fourth sale? Everything has a purpose. Everything has a meaning. And we do it earnestly. We do it with long-term intent so that the value is retained. We talk about that in HR, right? How do you retain your best employees? It's not just in what you give them. It's not a package. It's not a brown bag. It's engagement. Of course, looking at nexus person. Now, these are 4 elements under organizational charisma and savvy. And I coined the charisma and savvy part. The organizational, you'll find that in most places. Ability to get work done. Collaborative proposition. Safe island approach. Nexus person. What is a nexus person? It's a person that knows multiple resources, not just people, the resources, because you might know somebody, but, and yet do you know the resource that they'd be willing to bring to the table? It calls for work, guys. There's no getting around this. It's work. I submit this to you. How much more work is it to fall and get pain in life and experience suffering and look back day after day after day and say, I don't know how to get things done. I don't know what to do. I don't have answers. It is in the doing, the actions, because that emits chemicals in our body that allow us to think more clearly. It washes the brain by cleansing what we thought was true to what is actually occurring. And you can start to build, even on the smallest of outcomes. Well, I managed not to be chewed out by the manager, right? I managed not to have my child go into a conniption fit in the supermarket. I managed to stop my significant other from going into their tirades, that broken record, that doom loop. That's what this kind of benefits. You can realize these benefits. It does take a short period of time, and I would measure it literally, if you are not in a good place, in a painful place, in a frustration place. I posted an article the other day about depression. Hourly. Because if someone said to you, well, an hour is too short, and they didn't realize that an hour to you is a day is a week is a month, and a month is too long. If you've ever been in a place of pain, you'll know an hour can be a hell of a long time. As in the media, radio, TV, 1 minute, 60 seconds, 170 words can be a kill spot. We call that a kill spot. Let's continue. You have to consider strategic thinking. I told you, this is kind of heavy with specifics, and that's why I'm going very carefully through this. Strategic thinking, a decision mobilizer, right? It's not enough today to recite. I can do that all day long with these books, right? To recite someone who's gone before you. More importantly, you come from a place that you can sympathize with, empathize with. You choose the word. And most importantly, you've made a decision. No one said it was easy. I don't know why we coined this phrase and we've got it almost indelibly implanted in our brains. Why is life hard? Well, who said it was easy, right? The decision is difficult. Who said it was going to be easy, right? Think of a jigsaw puzzle. And in strategic thinking, your goal is to put that puzzle together, right? You're a problem solver. You know, there are people that every morning, just getting out of bed, washing, going downstairs to make something to eat, or realizing that they are still viable material. And I use that word very on purpose, and I'm not going to explain it in this discussion. But they're viable material. You know that some people find that an incredibly difficult thing to do. So I ask you, as a strategic thinker, what resources would you bring to the table to make that experience, just getting up in the morning, that much easier? Thank you, Malcolm. I appreciate the feedback. Being a decision mobilizer is implementing what you think, what you intend the outcome to be, and going through the steps. And I'll tell you right now, there are many people that skirt the issue, find rhyme or reason why their thoughts are not valued. We'll leave that one there on the table. Of course, strategic thinking implies gamification, right? Mariana, thank you very much for joining this morning. Our discussion is benefits of engagement on Managing Change Facebook Live chats. Gamification, why? A doctor called Jane McGonigal, about 5 years ago, did a dissertation, a PhD, on how gamification, games, impacted our communities, and specifically our youth. And she found that in America, high school is about 10,500 hours, if I'm not mistaken. Those same hours were recorded that youth were playing games. So that means the same amount of time that we are delivering constructive education, quote marks around that one, kids are looking for another outlet. Young minds are looking for another outlet. And she found out because simply it gives them feedback, engagement, and a sense of how to progress. How incredibly simple. And yet, it is the simple things that are marred and are shut away from us, and we want to engage in all these sophisticated machinations. Being a strategic thinker means that you see simple answers to what seems to be complicated situations. In many cases, it's because we are stuck in the mud. We've been in the situation too long. And that is why I support the notion of constantly moving in your mind, physically, and around the right people. It's amazing over the last year and a half that the people that have started in some of the businesses have fallen off. And it's not because of income, it's not because of resources. It's an interest that they feel they're uncomfortable. And that's fine. That's perfect. That's good. That works with me. Civic treatments. Civic treatments. What do I mean by civic treatment when I talk about benefits of engagement? Well, we know that there are a number of local community organizations, Elks Club, Rotary, etc., right? And yet today, and even I'm going to even throw in HR because of that mindset of corralling people as opposed to really lifting them. And there are a few really good organizations that help to lift people in terms of moving past what you can and cannot do to how to support the employee in optimizing their engagement with the company, with their work, with their colleagues, with the resources that are at hand. It's not always a matter of what you can do when you're in triage, okay? Social media has certainly changed everything when it comes to civic engagement and treatment. We can now reach across the world and speak to people that would share a very different perspective, a very different timeline of how things play out. Right? We think in terms of minutes and days, if not seconds, and some people are still, unfortunately, in positions where things are not going to change for years. Look at Puerto Rico with the last storm and the international response. Tesla went down, and immediately Elon Musk went down and immediately put in his sun collectors, those screens, right? Immediately he started to rebuild their infrastructure, whereas other entities are still looking at the old wire delivery of energy. It just takes too long. So civic treatment is looking at new ways of engaging. And when I say new ways, using the technology that's here, which, by the way, if you think about it, the sun energy, it's not new. It's that we haven't learned to harness it and deliver it. We don't choose to because of financial incentives. And all you have to do is go back and look at many of the energy-related innovations, and you'll see that to be true. Formal meetings and protocol. Toastmasters, for example, and I know a lot of people just think of Toastmasters as speaking. It is parliamentary procedure. What do I mean by that? When you get up in front of people, do you just start talking? Why don't you recognize the people that made the event possible? If you're in a conference, if you're in a workshop, if you've managed to allow, a Chamber of Commerce has allowed you to do a workshop. Formal protocol sets up an established order of how things are going to work, and people then can follow that. Of course, we need that from time to time, and certainly in communications, written, audibly, now text, of course, in business and outside of business. It shows that you are meaningful, you're on purpose, you have a structure. They can follow it. There are certain guidelines. Why is that important? When you look at project management and change management, there are templates and reports, stakeholder register, right? A charter, right? A charter that sets out not only what we're trying to do, the resources to accomplish it, and the timelines and the money, the budget. It also says what we will not do or accept. That's absolutely crucial. Business tools and technology, well, they are broad and deep. You've heard now that the federal government in America is setting up that all businesses must have a cybersecurity protocol, just as you must have a code of ethics, just as you must have a mode of dealing with risk and succession planning. These are now becoming part and parcel of our bundle. Well, I'm going to finish there because there's a whole other page here, and I know I've gone kind of deep with some of this. Think of the benefits of engagement across everything that you have done in the past, the environments and communities and societies that you're part of, even at work, especially at work, certainly at home, right, with the dynamics of your family, and begin to say, where do I want this to go? Is this something that's just going to continue repeating itself? Or is this something that I want to change in certain ways, certain aspects? Therein lies the rub. Therein lies the hard work. And through some of these studies, through these learning and engaging and seeking out others that can give you a different perspective, you will achieve that. This is Ronald Allen, Managing Change on Facebook Live Chats. You know where to find me.